Hey everybody, Jane here. I read Red Clocks. I need to talk about this.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing.
All right, so let me give you a little bit of background. I found this book through a video by Beautifully Bookish Bethany. She had done a video where I think it was like recommending books to politicians who are different politically leaning than her. And this was one of the books that was recommended to on that to one of those politicians. And the premise sounded so interesting that I went out and grabbed a copy. And I did not love it nearly as much as I thought I was going to. I'd put this on my 5-star predictions list. I was thinking it was going to be a new favorite, something I could recommend alongside The Handmaid's Tale and The Testaments. This, for me, fell very short of those things. Now, your mileage may vary because my biggest complaint about this book is that it is so literary. So let me talk a little bit about this book and the things that I think it did well and the things that I think I was frustrated with. So on the back, it says 5 women, 1 question. What is a woman for? Welcome to America. Abortion is illegal. In vitro fertilization is banned. And the Personhood Amendment grants rights of life, liberty, and property to every embryo. In a small Oregon fishing town, 5 very different women navigate these new barriers alongside age-old questions surrounding motherhood, identity, and freedom. So that's kind of the pitch. And I'm not entirely sure that I feel like it delivers fully on that premise/promise. So the first thing that I have kind of an issue with, one of the women that we are following she's like a historic character in a book that one of the characters is writing. So one of our characters, she's called the biographer. Okay. That's another issue I had is all of the women in this book, except for the historical person, they just have titles. We learn their names through other character stories. We don't know who these people are. They're not given names. They're just given relevant titles. So the biographer is my understanding, because again, this is very literary and sometimes I just didn't get it. The biographer is a teacher and she is writing this historical book about a woman who had explored the Arctic. This woman, I didn't really understand why she was in the book. And I didn't really get much out of her chapters or her little sections. I didn't really get her. The biographer I got, but the historic book that she's writing, I didn't really get it. The only thing that I took away from her part of the book was that polar bear liver is toxic. Don't eat polar bear liver. Whole thing I learned. And that is true because I read that and I'm like, is that really a thing? And it is a thing. So then I had to do a deep dive in Google of whether polar bear liver is indeed toxic. It is. So then we have the biographer, and she is a woman who is in her late 30s. She has polycystic ovarian syndrome, and she is trying to get pregnant, but they have gotten to the end of what they can do without in vitro fertilization, and she can't get in vitro because that's not allowed in this world. And then also she would like to adopt, but there's a new law about to be passed that you can't adopt unless you are a 2-parent family. So, she is at the place where she's running out of options for motherhood. The biographer was the character I was most invested in the whole book. I really as a woman who's gone through infertility herself, I was really invested in her plight and understood the complexity a little bit later. She is going to help another one of the characters try to seek an abortion, and she's really frustrated because she would like to just adopt this baby. We have a character who I'm going to talk about in a minute who gets pregnant, doesn't want to be pregnant, and decides that she needs an abortion. And of course we can't do that in this state, so the biographer, who is her teacher, helps her to seek this abortion at the end of the day, because she kind of puts her values of the things that she's teaching about women's rights and responsibilities above her own desire, which is to just be to this girl like, please just give me your baby. Like, we can do a private adoption, I guess. I guess she could still do a private adoption. I wasn't entirely sure how that worked or why the rules were quite how they were, but she could still, if this girl was like, yeah, you can adopt my baby, she could have still gotten the baby. But at the end of the day, that's not what happens, and she does have to help this girl seek an abortion. So her story, I think, was the one I most connected with. And also, like, understanding what it's like to be very pro-choice and think that women should have the right to choose, but also, like, being a woman who's infertile and is seeing people choose to end pregnancies that they would do anything to have. I had that situation personally. We had a family member who became pregnant and decided to end that pregnancy. And like, I was like, man, I would just have loved to just take their baby, but that wasn't what was right for them. And that was such a difficult, painful situation, I'm sure for her own reasons, but for me as well, where I was like, but I just want the baby. You're, you have every right to not give birth to this baby. But if you wanted to, and I had told them, if you wanted to, I would totally take this baby for you and raise it, because I have infertility. We failed our last round of fertility treatments, are not currently pursuing any more fertility treatments, and it broke my heart. So near and dear to me, the biographer story. Love that part. I really, of all of the women in here, she was the one I most related to. Next, we have the Mender. The Mender was probably the character I was most frustrated with. So the Mender is kind of I don't know if you'd call her a witch or what she is, but she lives out in the forest and she does herbal stuff. Her aunt taught her how to do herbal stuff, and she uses herbal treatments to help women. And at some point in this book, she is accused of basically practicing medicine without a license and giving a woman an abortion, but that's not what happens. And so we are seeing like her put on trial. The issue I had with her, I had a couple issues, but one is just, I wasn't sure what we were trying to do. So this character is, I don't know if she's autistic or developmentally delayed or what, but she's a strange character. She won't eat the food in the jail. She is struggling with not having, her world properly set up when she is, awaiting her trial. But also, like, her aunt died, presumably of, I think it's natural causes. And so she's thrown her in a freezer and is using her dead body to make up some of these mixtures and medicines that she is giving to people. And I wasn't sure about all that. I didn't know what we were supposed to think of the Mender. Like, the author can give us any character that she wants to. I mean, that's valid. But I wasn't sure why we were following this particular character, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to think about her, and I wasn't sure, like, what was going on with her. So, her aunt raised her, though, because her mom had abandoned her, and then she had a baby that she gave up. And she's kind of, like, stalking her daughter in the story, while she's also doing all the weird witchy stuff. So that brings us next to, I'm trying to figure out what they called her, the daughter. So the daughter is the mentor's daughter who was given up for adoption, was brought into this wealthy family, and kind of like a family who is very pro-life. They are happy to have their daughter. They would have more daughters. And unfortunately, the daughter is a teenager who gets pregnant and decides that she does not want to tell her parents that she's pregnant. She does not want to give birth. She's having a lot of questions about her own parent and all the feelings of an adopted child. She was probably my second favorite character as far as the one I was most invested in. Like, the biographer was first and then this character second. But she decides that she needs to have an abortion because she doesn't want to adopt her child out. She knows what that's like, but she also, being an adopted child, she also does not know who her parents are, have a lot of questions. And while she is being raised by parents who love her, it's not an ideal, perfect situation in some ways. And she chooses to have an abortion and has to go to great lengths to have that abortion. And we see her failed attempts. And then she does finally manage to succeed in a very complex, like, dangerous scenario way, because that's what happens when you make healthcare inaccessible to women. But I digress. The last character, I'm going to see what they called her, is the wife. And the wife, the wife is married with 2 children, and she is kind of having a hard time in her marriage. And she ends up deciding that she wants a divorce. But, like, the main reason she wants a divorce, it seems, is so that she doesn't have to parent all the time and that she'll have shared parenting and actually get a break ever. And I didn't really understand her character. Like, I am sympathetic that parenting is hard. I parent. She doesn't have a good, helpful partner, and that sucks, and I'm sorry. But I didn't really understand where she was coming from with a lot of her choices. I didn't even really understand, like, what her issue was with her husband. Like, is it just that he's not helping you and you're overwhelmed? But, like, aren't you going to have to go back to work and stuff if you're single? Because she doesn't work right now. She just takes care of the kids. And I don't mean just takes care of the kids in a bad way, but I mean, like, okay, so now you're going to be a single mom. Yeah, he might do partial parenting, but now you're going to have to make all, like, the money to run your household, and you're going to have, when your kids are there, you're going to be it. You're not going to have his support at all. And I really didn't understand what her point in this story was, or, like, where she was mental wise, what she was thinking and doing. So I really ended up, I wanted this book to be about women and women's roles and ask a lot of questions. And I guess it does, but it does it in a way that just, I was kind of perplexed by a lot of it. And maybe I'm not educated enough for this book or academic enough for this book. I'm not sure. But also just the way it's told, and, like, everybody being titled instead of names. I didn't like this. It was almost a DNF early on. And then I was like, no, I'll push through because it did get interesting. But I was just so struggling with how this was written. So it may really work for you, but it did not work for me. And I was so disappointed because I was hoping this was going to be a 5-star, maybe even favorite of the year, because I care about women's rights. I care about the question of what is the role of women. I care about all that so much. And this book, for me, didn't give those questions. It didn't give me what I wanted from it, I think. So have you read it? And if you did, what did you think? Am I just missing the point? And that's possible. Like I said, I'm not super academic, so I don't read a lot of literary work, and this just felt really literary to me. So did I just miss out on it? Is this a great book that I just don't get? Because that's totally possible. Or did you read it and you also kind of felt like, this isn't quite hitting or doing what I want it to do or what it seems like it sets out to do. So let me know in the comments if you've read this and kind of what you thought of it, if your thoughts were similar or if you really loved it and, maybe I'm missing stuff. My other question to you is, what books that have kind of a similar premise and a similar looking into things like, how giving rights to fetus affects IVF treatments, because that's what I was most invested in. What kind of books like that can you recommend me? What kind of books about women's rights, things that are similar to Handmaid's Tale, the Testaments, what can you recommend me that I should read if that's what I'm into? And that is not quite as literary, but still has these powerful conversations about what is the role of a woman. All right, guys, this has been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.